Bedford-Stuyvesant still has the second highest foreclosure rate of any neighborhood in the city. What would you do as council member to continue to support foreclosure prevention and counseling services at local community-based organizations? And we'll start over here again with Mr. Tiller.
Well, it's not what I would do, it's what I've already done. I had a conversation a year ago with the leaders of Bridge Street Development Corporation. I had a conversation with people from the Black Real Estate Board. And one of the things that we talked about was that one of the most difficult challenges in our community is simply transferring the asset of a house from one generation to the next. The primary instrument of wealth in many African American families, in fact many families in this country, is the primary asset of the home. And so I said, well, it's fine to talk about asset management. It's fine to talk about estate planning. It's fine to talk about financial literacy in broad terms. But what we have to do is specifically educate people how to transfer that asset from one generation to the next. So I didn't just talk about it. We didn't just have a conversation. I pulled that organization together, Bessie Edwards and Richard Flatteau and the folks at Bridge Street Amelia. And we had at Nazarene Congregational United Church of Christ a forum in which we pulled together estate planners, attorneys, real estate professionals, very knowledgeable people. And we put together a first-rate forum which gave neighbors, people in the community, some of the best possible information that they could possibly have in terms of planning to transfer that asset from one generation to the next. It is very tragic in a community like ours when people who earned the ability and bought homes on transit worker salaries or domestic salaries, and yet they lose it in the next generation to people who actually make more money than them. And so not only did I talk about that, not only did we have one forum, but we will be having another forum on September 15th, pulling all of those resources together to educate the community. Because one of the things that we have to have as a city council person is a person with an agile intellect, but a person that knows the pitfalls, the challenges of people in this community. And since I'm a minister and what I do is perform marriages, what I will do as a city council person is marry people with the resources that will help them. And this is a perfect example of what I will do from the council.
Thank you, Reverend Tiller. Mr. Cornegy.
Well, first of all, there are many organizations here in Bedford-Stuyvesant that provide services against predatory lending, and I would make sure that their funding remained available for those to operate as they should. There is a federal act, the Community Reinvestment Act, which calls on state and federal chartered banks to have pathways to home ownership, but also to help with families who are having difficulty meeting their payments. And I would make sure and continue to work with those banks. I'm blessed to have, as the sitting district leader, my female district leader, Annette Robinson, the Honorable Annette Robinson, is also the chair of banking, and continuing to work with her to make sure that those banks are held accountable to the Community Reinvestment Act, and to make sure that those pathways to home ownership include the failing and predatory lending. As a member of the legislative body at City Council, or as a legislative policy analyst, I've had the pleasure of working on pieces of legislation to protect not only the community at large, but our seniors from predatory lending. And I will continue to do that in partnership with Brownstoners and Bridge Street and the Yes Task Force, who every year annually put together forums so that they could remind those people who are in default, whether it's through utility bills or things of that nature, to make sure. The Brownstoners who I work with constantly go door to door and knock on people's doors to make sure that they're aware when they're on the list of being foreclosed upon through water and tax liens. So Bed-Stuy has a pretty good infrastructure with helping and assisting, and I would just make sure that I continue to do that and fund those to the tune that's necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Cornegy. Mr. Ford.
Thank you. The housing crisis can be broken down into two distinct problems. One is the availability of affordable rental units, and the other is the foreclosure crisis. One is hitting our tenants and our renters, the other is hitting our homeowners, who were for many years, decades, the pillar that kept this community afloat before it became a popular site for others to move to. How we fix the housing problem is not by after the fact. When a person gets into a problem, you help them to resolve it by continuing to engage them in the bureaucracy. The city did not do enough to protect its long-term residents from the aftermath of the housing meltdown. So I believe the city needs to step up by immediately instituting a progressive residential property tax rebate and abatement system that would rebate property taxes to individuals based on the longevity of home ownership. That will help to stabilize many of our most vulnerable homeowners who have been here for years, who suddenly find themselves in a pinch. Many of them are on fixed income and cannot afford increased property tax assessments. So the city needs to do more, and it is in the power of the city to alleviate many of these burdens which force homeowners into foreclosure by reducing their property tax burden. The second thing would be to address the affordable rental market. We need to have an actual realistic assessment of what affordability is. As of now, it is a relative term. It is pegged to what is called the area median income, which takes all of the income within a particular geographic area, and it averages it out, and it pegs affordability to that. Well, Bed-Stuy is in an area that includes Long Island and Westchester County. That's just absolutely ridiculous. We need to have home ownership and affordability pegged to the people who live in the community, not to the people who live on Long Island in $1 million homes or who live in Westchester. So we need to reform how we define affordability as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foy. Mr. Sweeney.
For someone that's in foreclosure, a young lady came up to me this past week and she stated that she was having trouble with her mortgage and things like that. And she reached out to this district, some of the non-for-profits, and she didn't really get any help. She kept plugging away until she was steered to the right resources that gave her a helping hand. For the banks that are holding these titles on these homes, there could be some new renegotiations with these banks, because some people may just not be able to stay in their home, but have equity. So for them to just lose their equity, be pushed out just like that, there may be another method and means where they can either buy a co-op, walk away with something, or even just renegotiate it, have a partner. But it really comes down to the banks that are holding these deeds. And if they're not willing to do anything, and if you look at the federal government's approach as far as keeping people in their homes, spanking these brokers and these predatory lenders, the people that are coming into the district, some of the folks are negotiating with the wrong folks. There's people coming in like sharks. You gotta make sure you have your wills together. You gotta have a plan where if you are in trouble, someone can really sit down and look at and assess your problem and be upfront and honest and fair with you. Some people may just maybe have the home for maybe 30, 40 years. Maybe the husband probably passed away. The financial structure that they had once before is not there, but they should not lose everything. So if you have these organizations in the community, they're not-for-profits, and if they are really doing the proper services, the funding will definitely be there. I don't see anyone on this panel that can deny that they would not fund someone, especially me, that is really helping these folks stay in their home. That is the most important thing. Most of the time, most people don't know how to get out of trouble. They make irrational decisions. We have a situation in our family where there's some tough decisions that need to be made.